building mindfulness through art. I remember going to art school and trying different things. And one of the reasons actually I took art lessons once, I thought was a good way of meeting women and things of that nature. And I really enjoyed art. I wasn't very good at it, and I'm really looking forward towards to what we're going to create today. So, Stuart, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, everyone. Tonight, we thought we'd do something a little bit different from our usual Friday webinars. This week's webinar is all about building mindfulness through art. So over the next, I would say, hour or so, we're hoping to lead a very thought-provoking discussion that empowers you to reflect on yourself and how you're feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally. For everyone who's joining us on Zoom, we'd like to welcome you. We're so glad that you're able to join. Please know that you're welcome to turn on your cameras at any time. Since the activities we are leading relate to art and drawing, we also encourage everyone to take a moment to grab a sheet of paper, some pens, pencils, markers, anything you have in your house or wherever you are situated at the moment, so that we can do these activities together. And for anyone who's joining us on YouTube, you too are welcome to join our Zoom link, which I've provided in the description of the video. And without further ado, I'd like to begin by discussing what we hope to accomplish for today's session. So next slide. So we are brought today by the incredible power of technology. And whether you're a patient of Dr. Curnew's, a frequent visitor to our YouTube page, or it's your first time joining us, the pandemic has really showed us just how far we've come technologically speaking, where people all around Ontario and potentially beyond are able to connect and interact. Once we start to appreciate the little things like this, which we might sometimes take for granted or not always consider in our everyday lives, I think we can truly begin to get into the headspace of reflecting on ourselves and building or integrating mindfulness into our everyday lives. Tonight's objective is very simple. We want to lead some simple drawing activities and explore shared or diverse conclusions that we're able to come up with. As you can see from this animation, you don't need to be Vincent van Gogh, Michelangelo, or Leonardo da Vinci to take part or take something out of this activity. While none of these pieces of art we create today will find themselves in the Louvre Museum in France, we encourage you to engage fully with this activity and without personal judgment. Above all else, we hope you have fun tonight, trying out some things that maybe you didn't expect to do this evening. Next slide. So let's just go through a few ground rules before we get into our first activity. First and foremost, please remember that this is a safe and non-judgmental, free space where you're encouraged to give each activity a try. Secondly, whether you're joining us on Zoom or on YouTube, we encourage everyone to speak up, participate, and share how you are feeling in the moment. I'll be monitoring the chats on YouTube and Zoom throughout tonight's webinar, so you can always interact there if you feel more comfortable. Of course, we strongly encourage anyone and everyone to unmute themselves at any time to take part in this activity as well. Your interaction and engagement is what will make this discussion memorable and meaningful, and we would love to hear from you. And this brings me to my final point. Take time to reflect on how these activities make you feel and share your thoughts with us if you're comfortable. Nothing you say has to be scripted, rehearsed, or pre-planned. Just say how you're feeling in the moment and without any regrets. Overall, we're hoping tonight's webinar is interactive and deeply engaging for you. And with that said, I'd like to pass it along to Heather, who's going to be leading our first activity.
Stuart, my art tonight is definitely not going to be in any sort of museum, so I'm sorry in advance. But the first thing I want to do is start by combining mindfulness and confidence together, because I think that is the best way to win at life. Next slide. Mindfulness is said to be the antidote to anxiety and depression. Whoever's on the slide can click. There we go. And just to talk about what anxiety and depression means, anxiety is something that takes your mind into the future where a lot is unknown. Actually, I have a nice slide next to for that. And the future can be frightening if you think that if you have a negative outlook on life that's been brought about by negative past experiences, or being in a negative environment can make you have those sorts of predictions about your future. And then there's anxiety's ugly old friend, depression, where you constantly reminisce and feel guilty about the pains of the past. And then there's mindfulness that brings you full force into this present moment where you all need to just breathe and be. And I want to mention in the next slide too, that if you are suffering from depression, which is a combination of low mood, low energy, and a loss of interest in things that make you happy, please don't suffer in silence. Talk to your doctor. Being on an antidepressant, which is very effective and can carry you through a difficult time, or seeking counseling, is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of strength. It's easy to stay silent and just say you'll get through this on your own, but it's hard to be vulnerable about your feelings, and it's hard to admit when we need help. And doing hard things mean that we're strong. Anxiety and depression are these are like computer programs that are well integrated into our minds and are difficult to override without an outside perspective and support to start rewriting those automated programs. Next slide. And in this day and age, it's actually very normal to have anxiety. I was at a talk recently discussing how we're in the age of anxiety, and that's because we're in the age of information. We are having to process so much more information than we would have had to 100 years ago, when our lives were a lot more simple, and it is an overload. So if you're feeling anxious and subsequently depressed, it's a sign of the times. You are not alone. Talk to your GP. That's what they're there for. So on to our challenge. Next slide. We're going to start with something a little bit challenging, actually, a little bit out of the box. We want you to draw something that represents confidence to you. And so I'm going to jump into a screen so I can do some drawing. We're going to do this together. I'm going to perform my first artwork of the night. Let me get in there. So for me, I feel that confidence is the ground beneath your feet. So I just want to draw a horizon for me first, and then a path, because I feel that confidence is like the bricks on the ground that pave the way in front of you, and it's the path that leads to the destination you're trying to reach. It's not an arrogance or some sort of blind assumption that you're the best at everything. It's an openness and a self-love that aims to constantly attempt new feats and forgive past mistakes and learn new skills and persist through all difficulties. And I think that confidence helps us reach our destination. It makes a smooth path, something that is enjoyable for us as we get along. So that's what I'm drawing. And this is the sky over here. That's our greenery on the sides. Nobody said I'm good at art. This is why I'm in med school. And I'm curious to know what confidence would mean to anyone else watching. If anyone has any input. Oh, Dr. Curnew, what did you draw? We can't hear you. You're on mute.
There you go. I draw 2 mountains, a sun, and some trees. And so I love being outdoors, and I learned from Hannah. Hannah's on there as well. Is that usually when I go walking, I'm thinking all the things I have to do. But now when I try to go walk, I try to listen to the birds and to the wind and the trees. So so here's my little thing being outdoors. So I think just walking and being outdoors is wonderful for me. I encourage that for everybody.
I love that. I 100% agree. I think nature is healing, and it's centering and brings you into that moment. So that is that mindfulness that we're talking about. All right, and we're just gonna get out of this screen. We'll go to our next activity, which I think, Dr. Curnew, you're gonna like. It's your specialty. And just to mention that that confidence is courage. And that's an inspirational quote for everyone. So our next activity is to draw a heart and lungs. And there's a good reason behind all of this. So get into it, picking your favorite color to draw a pair of lungs, and then we're going to draw a heart. And I want to show you first how we do this in the medical world, how we draw lungs all the time, every day, in every patient's notes. Thank you. Clearing that. So, am I able? Yes. So, this is how we draw a pair of lungs. And each lung is a little bit different because one lung has to accommodate space for your heart there. And when you're in hospital, and I do this all day, we have to draw a nice line through them or draw what sounds we hear on those lungs. And the reason I wanted you to draw your lungs is because they're really the reason why we're all here today on this call and able to speak to each other and feel energized and have deep thoughts and ambitions. Our lungs are really fantastic. And I don't want to downplay the heart in front of Dr. Curnew. We're going to get there next, but I want to focus on the lungs for a second. And for those of us who didn't study chemistry at school, I want to explain what a rate limiting step means. In every chemical reaction, there are steps that happen. And the slowest step in that reaction determines the speed of the whole process. And our heart and our lungs are the rate limiting step to life. The strength of your heart and your lungs give strength to your day and your abilities. And I want us to all just take a moment to feel gratitude for our bodies and for our breath. And I believe that gratitude is the rate limiting step to happiness. And the greater the depth of your gratitude that you can have for life, the greater the depth of happiness that you can experience. True, strong gratitude isn't based on the things we have around us, because all of those things can really disappear. So it's important to be grateful just to breathe for a moment. And I want everybody to take a moment to just take a deep breath in and exhale it out, and just feel how easy that was. And I'm going to get a little bit medical right now, but some of the worst conditions to suffer or to watch as a doctor are those diseases that take a patient's breath away or take someone's breath away. So if you've got two great lungs, or even one that allows you to take a nice, easy breath in, that is something to be grateful for. So next, going back to our drawing, if we can. Okay, we go back to the drawing screen. Next, we're going to draw a heart on there. And I love drawing hearts because I'm a girl like that. Beautiful heart, Dr. Curnew. Excellent. So this is where your heart's located. It's next to your left lung over there. So that's what that little space is for.
You know what? I only have one color here. I have a pencil and I have orange. So there you go. I made mine. It's interesting. I think of the heart being the center of the universe, but I think it's actually the brain, actually. But my brain plays tricks on me all the time. So somebody else show some pictures. I want somebody else's pictures. I'm a lousy. Oh, there you go. There's Stuart.
And, feel free to decorate the lungs too. They can have like flowers or something, like they're beautiful. So, take artistic freedom in making it any way you want.
So I have some birds going through the lungs. Here you go. Flying through.
Lovely. And now, the reason I want to draw our heart is that's because it is often where we feel our emotions. And it's not just because Dr. Curnew is a cardiologist. The mind and the body are connected through emotions. Our body feels our mind's emotions. When you feel excited or scared or you're in love, it's your heart that translates those emotions into a rhythm and a beat. And so I want to leave you all with a challenge to get your heart racing for a single minute every day by doing jumping jacks, squats, or running on the spot, especially if you're super sedentary. If you are the more fitness oriented, you're probably already doing that. So that's great. But by getting your heart rate up on a regular basis, it helps to prepare you for those emotional moments when your heart will be racing. This is one of the ways that exercise helps us build resilience to stress. It's a means to practice the stress response for a moment. So when you're faced with that real deal, emotionally stressful situation, your heart is ready to handle that beat. And that is my drawing and challenge. So on to our next challenge.
And that brings us to me. So the next activity is called Beauty in the Contrast. And for this activity, you're going to need a few different colors. Hopefully you have a few if you were able to do the last activity. The first thing I want you to do, if you can, is to think of your favorite color. For me, my favorite color, let me find it. I really like forest green. It reminds me of nature. That's where I feel the most at peace, getting fresh air, especially during the fall. Getting that fresh air in my lungs, I don't know, it always hits different every time of year. And so I am excited for the turn of the seasons, even though in Ontario, fall only lasts a few weeks and then we're stuck with winter for 6 months. So once you've got your favorite color, I want you to actually, if you click on the slide, Hannah, scribble that favorite color on your sheet of paper. It doesn't have to be pretty. We just need to have that color down on your sheet of paper. Remember, this is your favorite color, so try to get as much of it on that sheet of paper as you can. And once you've done that, we'll flip to the next slide. And for the next slide, I want you to now find a color which you might not necessarily think goes well with your favorite color. So in this case, I picked a nice summery color. I said blue is a contrast to yellow. If you click on the slide, I figured that these are two colors that, could be jarring, it could be a little out there, but you know what? I like the way that they work together. It reminds me of the sky, it reminds me of the sun. And while they might not necessarily always go together, if I was to dress up in the morning, I probably wouldn't wear blue and yellow. I think that they're two nice colors on their own. And now that you've gotten two different colors scribbled on your sheet of paper, for me, I went with green on the sheet of paper I'm doing on my desk. And then I went with a nice pink color, go right beside it. I'm going to keep these separate for now, as you can see on my sheet of paper. And on the next slide, we're going to do something a little bit interesting. I want you to take that contrasting color, and I want you to scribble all over your favorite color. That color that you love so much, I want you to scribble all over it. Give it a little bit of contrast. They're going to overlap each other now. And now these colors are not separate, but in fact they are a part of each other. They're now part of the same story. And that brings us to our next slide. So I'll give you a moment to finish up with your drawing. I have mine here, as you can see. And while you sort of look at your sheet of paper, I want you to take a moment to reflect on what this activity, remember it's named Beauty in the Contrast, means to you. What is your interpretation of the activity? This one's a bit more abstract, and again, there's no right or wrong answer. I personally have an interpretation which I would like to share, but I would also like to open up the floor to anyone else. For instance, in this meantime, I'd like to turn it to Dr. Curnew. What is your interpretation of this activity, Beauty in the Contrast?
I think life is full of contrasts, is that, and to me, is that how do you place these and how do you deal with this? And so to me is that it's amazing how sometimes your mind goes from black to white, and then but you can blend the good and the bad. It can come out a nice color. That's what I make prime colors. So I think it's like it's just blending good and bad and just making it better.
Absolutely. And while we're on it, would any of the other volunteers, any of the participants also like to share your interpretations of the activity?
I can share my interpretation. I think that if everything was the same color, you wouldn't really notice any differences. But once you have multiple colors there, you can start to see more. Even like if the whole world was my favorite color, I would never see my favorite color. So I need other colors to be able to appreciate it.
I like that. That's, I think, all very thoughtful responses from everyone. And if we flip to the next slide, I'd love to share my interpretation as well. And I think it falls along the same vein. For me, this activity reminds me that there's purpose, there's meaning, there's takeaways to our struggles, hence beauty in the contrast. I think Heather said it quite nicely. If you think of it this way, if the whole world were a certain color like blue, we would never know and be able to identify the color blue. If we were happier every single day of our lives, it might lose meaning or significance to us, and we wouldn't fully appreciate those happy moments the more we experience it. So we experience a greater depth of emotion when we're experiencing a range of emotions, and that also includes the negative ones sometimes. And in many cases, it's possible to frame these struggles to find a more beautiful purpose, or to take a silver lining out of the negative experiences that are going to come with life. Oftentimes, it can be a way to teach us to appreciate the things and to find more depth in the struggles, and find a way to be resilient whenever they come our way in the future. You know, if you had told me 2 years ago that life would look the way it was, I would probably have been terrified. So with this challenge, though, many of us have learned things about ourselves that we've never fully realized or understood before. And so my takeaway is I'd like to encourage everyone to think about what you've learned about yourself in this pandemic, about this really incredible struggle that mankind has faced for nearly 2 years now. That's a question that maybe only you can answer, and I encourage you to take some time to think about it. Next slide. And this brings me to my next sort of question for you to reflect on. How do you cope with your struggles? You know, how do you try to overcome them? Or how do you reframe the negative experiences that you have in your life into something more positive? Again, I would like to open up the floor to our audience, as well as our fellow colleagues, for your insights. And in the meantime, for me, I feel like one of the ways that I really enjoy coping or overcoming challenges is sometimes I have a tendency to vent. And sometimes, you know, I worry that if I'm venting to other people, it may be overburdening them, but having someone to actively listen to how I'm feeling, you know, without judgment, you know, my friends, my family, people who I can trust, that can often be, you know, healing in itself, because it's a way for me to sort of make something that's bottling inside me into something real, into something tangible, and be able to share it with someone else so that I don't feel like that burden is always on my shoulders as well. And then being able to listen to them, you know, hear their insights, and just be able to have an open conversation with other people. So for me, one of the best ways of overcoming challenges or coping is to have meaningful relationships. And that comes with having a good relationship with my parents and some of my best friends who I've been fortunate enough to call my best friends for 10 to 15 years now. Would anyone else like to share?
I agree with you, Stuart. I think relationships are everything, and they can really put things into perspective. Something that I've been trying to practice is that emotions are temporary, but the result of that emotion and what you do with it can be forever. So I think that goes both ways. So acting out of anger can leave a permanent mark, and acting out of happiness can also leave a permanent mark. So that's something that I use to like view a bad situation and turn it into a positive and turn it into a life lesson.
That's really good. I just wanted to say that my current practice is I try to be grateful for my problems and what they'll give me. Like, you know, I have to study for exams. I have assessments. Like what a privileged problem that is. Like, it is intensely stressful what I have to do each day and how assessed and analyzed I have to be. But I'm lucky to be in this place where that's my biggest problem. So I try to think about my problems and make them frame them in a way that I'm grateful for what they're going to give me. And I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to have this problem.
Yeah, I just want to add on my opinion as well. I think too, one of the things that helps me is when I think about previous times that I've overcome challenges. What were the things that I leaned onto during those times to overcome trials and tribulation, and how do I kind of cope now with whatever situation I'm facing? So just like Stuart mentioned, with the support system, thinking about the people who are supporting me and believe in me. That's always something that's helped me, but also thinking about, this is something we talked about in the 3Ms group this week, but thinking about the intention of our actions and the way that we're trying to achieve our goals, rather than just focusing on the outcomes. So when we're faced with challenges, is thinking about the fact that we're trying and that we're doing our best, and not just focusing on whether we're attaining the outcomes that we're looking for. I think that's something to consider as well.
I think you make a really great point, Hannah. And if we're able to move on to the next slide, actually, that's a really great segue into something that I want to sort of introduce to everyone as well. And it falls into the same vein that Hannah and her group Triple M Club often talk about, and that's getting unstuck. You know, in life, a lot of us will hit a wall with whatever we're hoping to accomplish. It can be for students, it can be academically. We work very hard, but maybe we don't do so well on a test, and we find ourselves sort of staying in the same place instead of getting better. How do we sort of manage those emotions? How do we continue to grow? For others, it can be exercise. Others, it can be lifestyle. And it can be some things that, we haven't even touched upon today as well. You know yourself better than anyone. So what I wanted to just take a moment to do is just to talk about getting unstuck when you hit this wall, learning how to embrace and not fear the challenges, and then also talk about how to build some healthy habits. And the first tip that I have to tell you is to start setting smaller goals. As Hannah said, oftentimes we focus on the destination that we'd like to get to and not think about the journey of getting there. So if you were setting a goal, for example, to walk 10 kilometers a day, but you're not somebody who necessarily used to do that regularly, that could be a big jump, and you might want to think about picking a goal that's a little bit smaller and you working your way towards the ultimate goal. Sustainability in your goals is incredibly important. We want to feel like your goals are not something that's out of reach or unrealistic, because if it is, you may lose confidence in yourself. And ultimately, that can be one of the backbreakers when it comes to setting healthy habits. Is if you don't feel confident in what you're doing, you don't feel like you're able to do it, it can naturally be discouraging for anyone, myself included. So focusing on accomplishing small, very specific goals and working your way up will help you build self-efficacy and self-confidence. And then when it comes to things like changing parts in your lifestyle or your daily routine, confidence, of course, can go a really, really long way. The next one as well is watching and learning. I think everyone has a role model in their life. For some of us, it's people close to us, our parents, our close friends. For others, it can be role models in the community, role models in the media. Think about who's particularly inspiring to you, and whoever it is, they've taught you something valuable, and that's the role of value of watching and learning. Taking time to observe those around you who have or are working towards similar goals can have its own benefits as well. For instance, if you had aspirations of altering your diet from what you're currently eating to something that's maybe more plant-based, for instance, who are the people that you can talk to about this? Is it someone you know? Is it someone you may not know but who's willing to help? Is it a professional resource? Role modeling and learning from our role models can be very potent. There's many people who have been faced with similar challenges that we have, and while they may not always be the exact same challenges, and we may not always know exactly what they're going through, they may have some insights that maybe you didn't consider. And so opening up the floor and opening up conversations with other people can be a really great way to sort of get yourself unstuck and get yourself on the right track to reaching your goals moving forward. And I want to talk about two more ways to get unstuck. And the first one is building a team. So Dr. Curnew is a very strong advocate for the Harvard longevity study, and it's a fantastic study. What it really tells us is that the key to healthy aging, the key to growing well and aging well is to have meaningful quality relationships. Sometimes we don't realize how important having encouragement, feedback, or positive reinforcement really is towards our self-belief and our self-confidence. And there's a famous quote that always says, you can't love others if you can't love yourself. But personally, I feel that sometimes it takes someone else showing what they see in you that you may not otherwise see in yourself that can really make all the difference. So I think in order to feel that you're capable yourself, sometimes you need someone else in your corner going to bat with you and really showing that self-belief or showing that belief in you. And that's where friends, family, meaningful people, people at the clinic, Dr. Curnew, that's where we all come in. And hopefully we can be sort of a support for you. Building a team and having a team in your corner is crucial towards having a healthy aging process. And lastly, enjoy the process. As they say, hardships are inevitable, and we're all faced with them in our lives. But like my takeaway from the last activity, there's beauty in the journey, there's beauty in the contrast. So focus on that voice inside your head and try to be friends with it. Remember, that voice that's causing you doubts, that's telling you can't do something. At the end of the day, you're on the same side. So tackle new obstacles with a fresh outlook and a positive attitude. Shoot for the stars and see where you land. And while on that journey, take time to enjoy the view.
Stuart, this is, to me, go back one slide. To me, I think this is key. I think for too long, I tried to do things, I can do it myself. I can't. I can do better with others, and try and enjoy that journey. I feel bad for all you guys in school right now because you have to concentrate on grades instead of enjoying the process. You can still do both, but it's hard to do that. In life, everybody wants a gold medal. There's only one gold medal. And to me is that getting better and enjoying the process and surrounding yourself with other people in the same process is the key. I think everybody take a picture of this slide. To me, if I can wish everybody one thing is to build themselves a better team and enjoy the journey and not be so hard on yourself. Thank you for sharing that. Good luck, everybody. You can do it. Can't always do it every day, but you can do it most days.
Exactly. Every day is a new day. Every day when you take your head off the pillow, it's a fresh start. So, sometimes it's good to focus on being in the moment, as Heather was saying at the very beginning, not dwelling in the past, not so much focusing on what's going to happen in the future, but rather enjoying the moment that you're in right now and focusing on that, because if you don't, life will go by and you might miss it. So next I want to just briefly talk about embracing these challenges. So whenever I think of challenges, I think of this very famous line in physics: for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So likewise, I think for every challenge that we face, it's important to think about finding a workable solution or a way to overcome this challenge. And on the next slide, I just want to give a few different, maybe challenges that you've embraced or experienced on your journey towards healthy lifestyle, whether it's healthy eating, whether it's exercise, and give you maybe just a few ideas for maybe how you can work around these challenges and find a workable solution. So there's really so many reasons why many of us, myself included, for example, struggle with, in this case, consistent physical activity every single day. And the key, however, is to set these goals that are realistic, attainable, and of course, smart. After all, you know yourself better, so focus on goals that you know you'll be able to accomplish, and not something that someone else is telling you that you should do. So for the excuse or for the challenge, I don't have time, focus on integrating activities into your daily routine, maybe as opposed to always setting time for physical activity. Go for walks as a break as opposed to watching television. Bike from place to place, or find a way to get physical activity into your work life, such as taking the stairs instead of the elevator. These are small things that I'm sure you maybe have heard before, but over time it's ways that can sort of add up. And once you do it for a few weeks, I forget how long it is, but to make a habit, I think you do it 3 or 4 weeks, and once you do that, then it becomes a consistent routine. So focus on ways that you can integrate these into your life, maybe as opposed to always setting time for them if you feel like you don't have enough time all the time. The next one is, I struggle to consistently exercise. And to that I say, don't worry about what others are doing. Throughout high school, I always focused too much on a lot of my friends who were benching 200 pounds, and here I was, the scrawny kid who couldn't do a pull-up. But, I really enjoyed running as opposed to, heavy lifting. So for me, I focused on things that were more aerobics, such as playing hockey, playing basketball, choosing activities that I know I enjoy, and finding spaces that I felt were non-judgmental. So instead of, playing in the highest league of hockey, finding a league that I knew was going to sort of be supportive, not overly cruel or rude. And from there, I really found I was able to enjoy the activities that we're doing. And of course, as I've mentioned before, start smaller. Don't focus on the end goal, but focus on taking steps towards reaching that goal over time. So as opposed to focusing on running 10 kilometers every single day, maybe start focusing on 2 kilometers a day and gradually work towards the ultimate goal. And on the next slide, I just have 2 more as well. I don't feel motivated. Well, remember that starting oftentimes is the hardest part. So one way that I sort of work around feeling unmotivated is, setting goals with friends or telling friends about my goals. I found that as much as I love running, when the weather gets cold, sometimes I don't want to go out because I'm freezing. But if I have friends who are asking or calling me or seeing if I want to go on runs with them, it makes the journey, 1, a lot more enjoyable. 2, it makes it a social occasion as opposed to, a strenuous chore that maybe I have to do. And once you have people sort of working with you, and the process often becomes a lot more enjoyable overall. Another thing as well is using health apps if you find those beneficial. We've talked about a lot of them in different various webinars, and you can find those on our YouTube channel. One that I found very helpful is actually not related to exercise at all, but it's actually related to meditation and mindfulness, which I found is a good way for me to sort of calm my mind at the end of the day as well. So these health apps, they can work for you in very different ways. I encourage you to check out the App Store and look into the health and fitness sections of the App Store, because there's a lot of different apps out there that maybe could help you feel a little bit more motivated or help you overcome the challenges you're facing. Another one is set reminders. Put things in writing. Sometimes if you make something tangible as opposed to something that's in the air, it makes it feel a little bit more real. And finally, celebrate your accomplishments. Sometimes if you work extra hard, you're running the extra mile, challenge yourself, or reward yourself with an extra episode on Netflix, or go hang out with friends when it's safe, or something like that. Life is all about celebrating your accomplishments and taking time to celebrate those accomplishments as well. And finally, I keep experiencing setbacks. Well, setbacks, of course, are a natural part of progression, so focus on how you control your reaction to these setbacks. Build a supportive network. Dr. Curnew and the team of volunteers here are some of my closest allies and supporters, and I'm so grateful to have them on my side. And finally, change things up when your routine gets dull. If you find you're becoming bored with the things that you're consistently doing, the things that you're consistently eating, think about new ways that you can sort of spice things up while continuing to challenge yourself. That's the main thing. That's the main thing for overcoming your setbacks. And very briefly as well, we've done a very recent webinar. Some of the members in this chat led an activity feeling unmotivated. Well, let's jump into exercise. So on the next 2 slides or 3 slides, I just want to show you a few quick exercise routines that you can sort of integrate into your daily life. The first one is flutter kicks. As you can see here, the instructions are just to do 15 to 30 seconds of exercise mixed in with about 15 to 20 seconds of rest 3 to 5 times. And all you have to do for this one is sit in your chair, elevate your legs up off the ground, and just rotate with your right leg going up and then your left leg going up. And just rotate back and forth. Make sure that your back is straight, leaning backwards and tightening up your core. Having a strong core is so crucial because it's sort of the backbone to all the other body parts. So if you have a strong, healthy core, it means you have good lumbar support. It means you have a supported back, and this is sort of like the foundation to everything else. Strength training is beneficial for any part of your body, but we especially want to speak about the core. So the next one is in and outs. So very similar. If you lean back in your chair, you just sort of tuck your knees up towards your chest and then let them go back and forth in a repeated rotation for 10 to 20 reps while giving yourself 20 seconds of rest. And finally, tummy tucks. So if you get some sort of weighted exercise ball, or it could be a book, you just want to sort of hold this above your belly button and twist your torso to the left and then to the right, making sure that your feet are flat on the ground, and make sure you're keeping that core tight as well. So those are some of the activities for core. Next, I want to talk about leg exercises. So apart from your core, another important part is, of course, your legs. Building strong leg muscles has many benefits, including improving your posture and your balance. Some exercises that can help build strong legs include knee extensions, which focus on your quadricep muscles. You don't necessarily need to know what those are. But for these, you can sit on your chair as normal and then slowly raise and extend one leg, then lower it back down and repeat this as you alternate legs for about 10 to 30 seconds, followed by about 20 seconds of rest. Another great exercise as well is just sitting and standing. It's very similar to sort of a squat, except you have a chair to help support you. This works your quadriceps, your glutes, your hip flexors. You don't need to know these things, but they work those as well. And then for these, you'll begin by sitting in a chair and then slowly standing up without the use of your arms. So make sure you're not using your arms to support you. That's cheating. And then slowly sit back down again without using your arms. And of course, if you aren't comfortable with not using your arms quite yet, don't worry. You can begin by using your arms slightly to help give you a little bit of a boost. And as you continue exercising, you'll notice that you'll be building your strength and getting to the point where you might not even need to use your arms for help anyways. And lastly, a great exercise to strengthen your calf muscles, which is, down here, to do calf raises. So with these, you just want to sit down in your chair with your legs bent right in front of you and slowly bring your feet up to your tippy toes and then back down. Now, if you find yourself seeking a challenge, you can also do this by standing up instead of sitting. I know that this can be difficult for me personally to sort of balance that. So when I do this standing up, I like to make sure that I have something that I can grab onto right around me just in case I lose balance. Speaking for myself, I know navigating these exercises can seem pretty intimidating to do on your own, so this is where I find things like YouTube to be very helpful, where they offer step-by-step instructions filmed with exercise routines that are easy to follow. And I love these because instructors will often coach you through it, depending on your level of comfort, whether you're basic, intermediate, or even more experienced. And this is an awesome way to help sort of get that social support that sometimes we like to have when we're exercising. So check out YouTube as well for many different exercise videos. And finally, cardio. Cardio is an exercise that it raises your heart rate. So the American Heart Association recommends that you should have at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise most days a week. Cardio exercises are really important to include in a budding exercise routine, as they're great to improve your heart, your lung health, sort of help you lose weight as well if that's something that you're concerned about. And they're often not as daunting as they may seem. Many of us have activities that we enjoy that are only one step away from being a good cardio routine. So if you enjoy walking, maybe picking up the pace just a little bit to get into a nice brisk walk along with your friends, your dog, dancing to music, cycling, swimming, even gardening or doing home chores. These are great ways to sort of get your heart raised. And there's a great wealth of information and free classes on YouTube as well. So during the pandemic, we may not have access to certain resources like dance classes, or going to the local swimming pool or going to the local community center. But you can certainly look up anything on YouTube, and it's sort of a great way to add some variation into the exercises that you've done previously and find new ones that maybe you never considered before. And I want to wrap up my section just talking about building healthy habits. And it's, for me, I don't want to take too long with this. First and foremost, make it fun, not an obligation. So try doing things that you enjoy, going on walks with friends, picking up a new sport, even moving around during commercial breaks. I'm an avid Leafs fan. I like to get off the couch during the intermissions just to sort of give myself a break. And then, of course, exercising, while watching Netflix. So I found that a good way to sort of get in my shows while also being physically active is to use my treadmill or my elliptical downstairs while watching Netflix. This is a great way to sort of make it fun instead of an obligation. Next, make sure that things are in little bite sizes. Use SMART goals. Make sure that they're specific. So it's not something that's abstract. It's very focused. It's measurable, so you can quantify it. For example, I want to go 20 minutes of exercise a day. It's attainable. Well, yes, I know that it's attainable. I think that it's something I can reasonably do. Make sure it's relevant. Well, for me, I want to sort of integrate this into my daily routine to sort of have a break from my studies. So that's why it's relevant to me. And time specific. Well, I hope to be able to implement this within a week and stick to this routine moving forward. So make sure you have SMART goals. And finally, make it a routine. A little bit of exercise is better than none at all. Develop a routine that works best for you. And of course, enjoy the process along the way. And there's going to be many times where we fall flat on our face. It's all about how we get up and respond to that.
Alrighty, so on to the next activity. So this one's called the life bar. So having the piece of paper and any coloring or pen or pencils you have near you, we're going to draw a video game life bar. So I put an example on the right over here. So yours might look like a couple hearts. You also have the standard life bar where it's just a rectangle, and then you can color in how you're feeling today. But I just want you to fill in that life bar based on how you're feeling. And I'm going to pull up the whiteboard so I can do it with you. All right. And I have to clear Heather's beautiful lungs and heart. All righty. So I am going to, all right, for this example, I'm just going to create a rectangle, and we are going to call it the life bar. I'm just gonna color in how I'm feeling today. So just feel free to fill in the extent to which you're feeling. Feeling great, you can fill in all the hearts or your entire rectangle. you're not feeling that great, you can leave a little bit of space. But today I'm feeling pretty good today. So I'm going to color up until here. See if I can make this easier for me. Oh, I see Stuart. I think Stuart's feeling pretty good as well. Alrighty. Perfect. And I'm just going to go over back to the slides here. So the next part of this activity is to identify energizers and depleters. And what I mean by that is I want you to think about thoughts and activities that either make you feel really energized or drain your energy. So think about what things make me feel like ready to go, really motivated, and what things drain my energy and require me to take a break or rest. And I think something that I thought about while trying this activity out is that sometimes activities and thoughts that we have, they can be both. Sometimes they can be energizers, sometimes they can be depleters. I think one of the ones that came to mind for me was socializing. So sometimes when I'm with my friends, I feel really great. But if I'm not feeling that great physically or mentally, spending time with other people actually tends to drain me out more. So think about that as well when you're writing it down, and make note of that too when you're writing down both lists. So I'll go back to the whiteboard and I'll kind of write out what mine would look like. So I'm just going to do a little T chart. I don't think it's been a while since I've done these, but alrighty. Just gonna write in some of the things that I would consider to be energizers and depleters. So just to give you some ideas, some things that energize me is practicing mindfulness, reading, taking a walk in nature, developing meaningful connections with other people, whether that's friends, family, or new patients. I know we have a lovely time in our 3Ms group, and a couple months ago, we didn't even know each other. So there's always opportunities for us to get to know one another and make really meaningful relationships and networks with each other. And for me, depleters, I think depleters can vary for everyone. I think for me, sometimes I find myself overthinking a certain situation. I might be overworking. I know for a lot of our patients, sometimes taking care of others can take a lot of energy out of us. So that's a potential depleter you might want to consider. And so I've just put some examples down here, but I would love to kind of open it up to everybody and ask how you found this activity. I'm gonna go back to the slides here. So we've done the life bar and we've thought about some of the activities and thoughts that energize us or deplete us. And so I had a couple questions that might prompt you to share if you feel comfortable. So number one, how do you feel looking at your life bar? Are you satisfied with it? Do you feel like maybe it could be a little better? And then second is to look at the number of energizing and depleting activities you've written down so far, and try to see if there's maybe an imbalance between the two. So maybe you have far more depleting activities than energizing ones. If it's vice versa, that's great if you have lots of energizing activity. But I know that there can be many times where we feel like we're doing a lot that's draining us more than energizing and nurturing us. And if that's the case, I want you to think about what current activities you already participate in, or what new activities you could add to that energizing list to recharge yourself and kind of bring your life bar back to the full entire 3 hearts, for example. And I'd love to just open it up here to the other volunteers and the call, or our guests as well, to just share if you feel comfortable about your experience with this activity.
So I'll start off with there is that when I get the chance to just spend time with my entire family, we're all dispersed now. So Thanksgiving was a wonderful time. We all able to get together. I kind of, my sister I haven't seen in a couple of years. I got to see her for a day or two. When the webinars, Fridays is a very nice time for me when I see all of you young people performing so well and doing so well. You make me so proud, and you're changing the world. I love the exercise, meditation, mindfulness on Wednesdays. I love the weight loss group on Tuesdays. I love when Aditi does her cooking thing, and I love challenging and talking to Dr. Um, the name escapes me right now. We just talk about different aspects of diet and lifestyle changes, and just playing tennis and just being with all these young people that make me stronger. The things that wear me down is that why did you take so long to call me, and you're not there when we try to call you. The thing that irks me the most is that when people don't show up or cancel for their stress test echo or Holter or don't bring back in time, because it's so demoralizing when we spend so much time for that doesn't happen. Um, and when people just don't try to be healthier and just try the process. Stuart told a nice slide about enjoying the process and finding your own group together. And so when people don't make the attempt to do that, just it saddens me. So those are some of the things I thought I'd just share.
Thank you so much, Dr. Curnew. Did anyone have any other thoughts as well?
I can share something. So when I was looking at the energizers and depleters, I noticed I have a lot more energizers than I do depleters. However, when I look at my life bar, I'm definitely more on the depleted side. So just kind of reflecting on that got me to think that maybe if I have all of these things that I know that give me energy, I should probably do a better job of making more time for them in my weekly schedule. So hopefully we can get that life bar moving towards the full side rather than teetering towards the empty side.
Very fair. Thanks so much, Aditi. Wonderful. So I also want to share my interpretation of this activity. So something that I think stood out to me is that our life bar is always going to be changing 24/7. We're going to sometimes feel really energized. We're sometimes going to feel really low on energy. And the things that kind of contribute to that life bar are always going to change as well. We're going to develop new relationships, lose some people during our life. I know during COVID, that's kind of been something that's been occurring for a lot of people is our relationships are changing because the dynamic is very different. We don't get to just call someone up, the day of and get to see people. A lot of it is much more appointment based and trying to plan ahead of time because it's a very difficult time for everyone. And given the fact that our life bar is always changing, I think it made me realize that if our energy levels are always changing, then we should also be moderating our own expectations of ourselves and others with it. We can't just expect, the highest level of achievement from someone who's not feeling the greatest on a particular day. And I think sometimes, I know Dr. Curnew mentioned this as well, but I think sometimes we are very hard on ourselves about the progress that we've made and about the lack of maybe progress that we've made. But I think it's always important to take into account how you're feeling that day, what things have occurred that day that maybe upset you or demotivated you, and take that into consideration when you're thinking about, oh, I should have done more, I should have done this, I shouldn't have done that, a lot of the shoulds, and think about what you did that day that you're really proud of and moderate your expectations that way. And I just wanted to kind of create this small list of energizers and depleters that maybe you wrote as you were thinking about your own daily routine. So I've added kind of being kind to someone, having relationships that are meaningful and really valuable to you, getting a good night's sleep, maybe practicing meditation. I think this quote really sums it up as well. Think good thoughts, speak good words, take good actions. And I think that really sums up what we're trying to do with the energizers. And then the depleters might include things like negative emotions or negative thoughts that come up every now and then when we're trying to achieve goals and we're experiencing some challenges. And when you do come across those challenges, think about what Stuart said and all the tips that he's provided today. And just think about how you can work through them and the support system you have. We're always happy to help you through the clinic. So please reach out to us if you do need extra support. And just to finish off my section, I just want to share a couple of quotes that I really like to look at sometimes when I'm not feeling great. And they're, do not think less of yourself just because today you are not at your best. Talk to yourself like someone you love. And I think the last one almost sounds very romantic. It's almost a romantic way of looking at self-love. It's to document the moments you feel most in love with yourself, what you're wearing, who you're around, what you're doing. Recreate and repeat. I particularly like this last one, and I really encourage you all to do the same. It's just to tune into the present and think about what you're doing that makes you feel really alive and happy, and strive to do that more every day.
So on to the next activity. This is going to be around the idea of fear. So if we go to the next slide. So the first thing that I want everyone to do is just write down the word fear on a piece of paper, or if you were on a laptop like me, I just put it into like a little empty PowerPoint document. So take a moment, write that down. And once you do that, we'll move on to the next slide. So the next step in this activity is to decorate that word. So you can do whatever you want, whatever kind of feels natural to you in that moment. Perhaps you want to doodle a couple of things. Perhaps you want to write down some additional fears or some sentiments. Or in my case, I thought I would just put things that brought me joy, things like love, exercise, dancing, cooking, the sun, music, all around the word fear. So up to you as to how you want to decorate it, but take some time to do whatever you feel is necessary. And if we move to the next slide, I'm just going to give everyone a minute to do that. Okay, hopefully everyone's had some time to get down some ideas. Please continue working on your decorations and your drawings if you would like, but I'm just going to move on to the next slide. So what are your thoughts on this activity? What did it mean to you? Before I share what I thought, is there anyone who would like to chime in? Okay, if not, I can share what I thought, and if anyone thinks of anything, just feel free to chime in and share what you thought. So to me, writing down the word fear kind of highlights the fact that it's this kind of fleeting emotion. It's something that I can kind of characterize and put down on paper. I can figure out what I'm feeling. And then being able to draw around and decorate it is, to me, kind of symbolic of taking away power from the fear. So if I'm putting a bunch of stuff that I love around the fear, I'm focusing on all of the great things in my life, the things that bring me energy and bring me strength. And when I put that around the fear, it kind of takes away that power, that scariness that I tend to associate with the word fear or my specific fears. So that's personally what it meant to me. Does anyone want to share before we move on to the next couple of slides?
So sometimes fear gets in the way for experiencing that joy. I get paralyzed, and I keep hearing change the things I change, and don't be affected by the things you don't change. I wish I could do that more sometimes. And when something goes wrong, that fear of whatever it is, sometimes I can't put those nice things around me. I try to, but I just get paralyzed in the moment. So I got to learn to do that better. I'm more aware of it, but I'm not sure I can always do it. Hannah, I need a comment from you.
Yeah, no, I actually want to add on to Judy. I completely agree with you. I think writing it just down, even without the decorations, it almost kind of puts into perspective that it's just an emotion. But when you start to add in all the things that you love and all the things that make you happy, I think it puts into perspective that it's just one of the emotions that we're capable of feeling. So fear alone, it's really daunting and really scary. But when we add in the moments in our past where we felt really joyful, when we felt really excited, it takes away just that one emotion of fear.
I just want to echo that. I think it is so important to identify fear and call it out, and the things that we're afraid of, to recognize it, and by saying it, it actually takes away its power a bit, and it does isolate it as something that can be fleeting and isn't permanent. It is just a feeling, just like any other feeling, and it's there for a moment and gone the next. So,
Cynthia, you said something earlier about confidence. So certain areas I don't mind making a mistake in because I'm confident enough in that area that I can overcome it. Other areas I'm not so sure, and I feel more vulnerable. And so, so what I encourage people is learn to fail well and learn to fail good. And right now our society has made us want everything rapid, right away, and perfect. Holy cow, I can't do that. Be human, be kind, get better, work at it, enjoy the process. Some days I can do it, some days I can't. So get the confidence to just go and try. And draw badly like I'm doing tonight if you want. And write.
Thank you for all of those thoughts. They're all very valid interpretations of the activity and really meaningful discussions. And that kind of ties into the point of fear can control us at times. So to have fear, to fear something can be natural. It's wired into us. We are, human beings. It's part of biological process. When you think about nature and discriminating between dangers, fear is something that's going to be innately within us. However, when it becomes a problem is when that fear keeps you from trying new things. It keeps controlling you and you're not able to live your life to the fullest extent because it has that grip on you. So how can we manage our fears? That's what I'll be going over in the next couple of slides. And if anyone at any point wants to add anything or share their own personal experience, please feel free to do so. So these are just a couple of tips on how we can work to manage our fears. The first thing is acknowledging the change and your fears. So oftentimes fears are brought about by a change or a new aspect within our lives. So the first step is just acknowledging that this change has happened, this change does exist, and then acknowledge your fears in relation to that. So recognize that, oh, I'm afraid of this, and that's okay, I'm going to work through it. The second step is accepting your feelings. So if you're feeling really fearful of something, perhaps that's leading you to have a lot of anxiety about that topic. If you need to, you can seek support for that. Acknowledge the fact that I'm scared in this situation, I'm feeling really anxious. And if need be, acknowledge that I might need to go talk to someone, I might need to seek some help, whether that is professional help or whether that's just talking to a friend or family member. Another recommendation that I was actually surprised to find, but reading about it actually made a lot of sense, designate worry time. So it's unrealistic to expect ourselves to not worry or fixate on certain problems. So what a lot of people recommend is that you kind of structure your day and your week so that you have time to process these emotions and to worry. Say it's 15 to 30 minutes, perhaps twice a week. During this time, you go to a space where you feel safe, where you're uninterrupted, and you just work through the emotions. You write everything down. Perhaps part of your process is you crumple up that paper and you throw it away. Perhaps part of the process is you talk through and logic through all of those fears. But you do what you need to do within that time. And when that time is done, you kind of leave those fears behind. You'd say, okay, I'm done fixating on this for today, and you move on. The next step is communication. So if you're experiencing fears, if you're trying to tackle your fears, the support system around you can't help you unless you're telling them what you are feeling or what you need. So it's important to have that level of communication with those around you, but also with yourself, communicating with yourself to ensure that you're being honest with yourself, setting realistic expectations. And that ties into the next point. So try to remain positive. Remember that you have tremendous value and continue to value yourself. And that leads into having realistic expectations. So keeping in mind that your value, your health, all of those are incredibly important. Set realistic expectations that allow you to continue to value yourself and stay positive. And finally, there's be flexible and get involved in the change and find ways to reduce your stress, as this can help mitigate those fears. So we're going to unpack some of these tips on the upcoming slides and talk about different activities you can do to actually address it. So for the first two tips, acknowledging the change in your fears and accepting your feelings, this is really something that invites reflection. So reflect on what has happened and what that means to you, outline what your fears are, and reflect on these aspects and then validate everything you're feeling. So some activities you might want to engage in include journaling. So you can write out a reflection, whether that be on paper, whether you want to type that out. Another thing you can do is do guided meditations. So for instance, this is a specific guided meditation that focuses on letting go of fear. So through the process, they kind of guide you to think about your fears, and then towards the end of the practice, letting them go. So these are two activities that you can engage in that'll help you accomplish, or at least start working towards, these first two initial steps. So the next is designate worry time. So as we discussed, schedule the time, find somewhere where you're calm and uninterrupted. Perhaps that's alone in your bedroom, perhaps that's out in nature, that's up to you. And take time to process your emotions. So the recommendation for worry time is you try to write them out or list them out, get everything out of your head onto paper or a screen, and then try to process everything that you've thought about up to this point. So in this case of this person, they just put it into their phone. They put all of these different worries that they have, they process it, and when they're moving on, they throw it in the trash on their phone, or if you were writing it out on paper, perhaps you discard it or save it for later so you can go back and reflect in the future. And next is communicate, stay positive, and set realistic expectations. So start slow. We have fears for a reason. Trying to tackle them is not something that you can do in a few minutes, a few hours, or even a few days, weeks, or months. It really depends on the context of the fear and what it means to you. So it's absolutely okay to start slow. And the most important thing is being kind to yourself throughout this entire process. So when you're thinking about these fears, you want to write it down. Perhaps if you're thinking about working through it, sometimes role playing is good to get that communication up. For instance, if you have a serious fear about talking to someone about an issue that's really close to your heart, perhaps role playing it out with a friend that you trust beforehand will help you work through that fear of communication and get you to a point where you're able to accomplish your goals. And finally, this was mentioned earlier on, but setting realistic expectations ties back to that idea of SMART goals. So setting something that's specific, measurable, attainable, or has an action plan, realistic and time bound, that's going to ensure that you have a relevant, realistic goal that you'll be able to execute, because it's taking into account all of these other different factors that could be affecting you. And finally, find ways to reduce stress. So we've touched on a bunch of different things throughout this webinar, and this is just a little summary of it. So do something that you love, that brings you joy. Listen to your favorite music. There is so much research on the power of music in reducing anxiety, depression, blood pressure. So it's something that we sometimes don't think about, but if you listen to meaningful music, it has a profound impact on yourself. So that's a simple thing that you can integrate into your everyday life. And finally, get moving. We've talked about exercise a lot. So that's another way to kind of get all of those neurotransmitters rushing and give you that good feeling.
Thank you, Aditi. That was awesome. It really got me thinking about all the fears that I might have and how to overcome them. So I really appreciated that. This is our last activity. And what I want you to do, the next slide, please, is I first want us to start off with something simple. So close your eyes for a bit and imagine a red car. And once you have that image in your mind, I want you to grab a piece of paper, which you probably already have in front of you, and draw what you see. Draw what you imagine. Okay, I'm just gonna show what mine looks like. I drew it on a piece of paper. Oh, you're right, Hannah. I should have probably chose the board, but I don't know if you can see it. Maybe I'll have to take out my background. There we go. This is my little red car. It's not red because I only have a black pen, but it has a little family in it. I saw Dr. Curnew. Feel free to share.
You know, it's a Tesla, self-driving.
Oh, you have to one up me, eh? How to driver at the wheel next time. Okay, so that was our first activity, and I want to move on to our second one. Our second one is close your eyes again and imagine yourself. And I want you to take 1 minute and draw a self-portrait. Make it however you want it to be. And Hannah, maybe I'll use the board this time. I see your smiling face. I was a little late. I was struggling a little bit. I'm doing my try. But this is me. This is my not very great skills. And my smile, because I think I'm often smiling with my big teeth.
I would put your laugh. You have the greatest laugh.
Okay, we'll do that.
But we'll never joke tonight.
No jokes tonight. Next time, I promise.
Yeah, has the greatest jokes.
I try my best. Today, though, no jokes. But this can be your joke. I think this drawing is pretty hilarious. It's a testament of why I'm in science and nothing artistic. But yes, that's the end of our activity today. And I just wanted to reflect on it. What are your thoughts and what did it mean to you? Why did I get you to draw a red car after you imagined it and yourself after you imagined yourself?
Red is associated with something with fear, power, or something.
It definitely is.
Danger, maybe for some people, or for me, it's a heart, which is kind of a nice thing.
Right.
But you know, by the way, red cars get more tickets than the blue cars.
They think they're going faster, right?
I don't know. I hear that red car gets more tickets. I don't know if that's true or not, but I once heard that from somewhere.
Probably is. Because you're right. I think we associate red with racing. You're right. Yes. So the reason that I got you to do this activity is because what we think and what we imagine is what we put out in the world. So all I asked you to do was just imagine yourself or imagine a car, and you were able to produce an image. And it kind of shows how powerful our thoughts are. Because you didn't have to see a car in front of you, and you didn't need a mirror to picture yourself. You just drew what your interpretation was of who you are as a person. And the way we see the world is limited by the scope of our eyes. So if I look straight at you, there's only so much I can see on the left side and the right side. And the takeaway from that is our thoughts limit us in the exact same way. The way we think about things prevents us or allows us to see more on the left side and more on the right side. Our creativity, our problem solving, and our logic can all be impaired if we can't see past negative thoughts. And I want you to think about a time that you were stressed. Maybe you had a bad morning, you missed your bus, you burned your oatmeal, your socks had too many holes in them and you couldn't find the right pair. So you're tired and stressed, and then a coworker maybe comes to you with a problem. And all you can think is, I'm having the worst day. Why is this my luck? The universe is just out to get me. And that's when a simple, fixable problem that if you just spent 2 minutes thinking about turns into this whole philosophical questioning. And you're just wondering why you are having the worst luck of the century. And this is how negative thoughts lead to negative interpretations. We view the world with the lens and the mindset that we already have. And in the same way, positive thoughts will lead to positive interpretations. And I want to expand upon this. Next slide, please. I bet most of us have heard the phrase, seeing is believing. And there were scientists who actually wanted to study this. There was research done in brain patterns. They went to weightlifters and said, hey, let's test it out. I want to see what's going on in your brain. And what they found is that the same brain patterns were activated when weightlifters were actually lifting the weight as when they just imagined they were lifting the weights. It was the exact same thing being activated in their brain. And even more impressive is that when they asked these weightlifters to imagine lifting weights before actually doing it, there was an increase in strength. So what that means is that you are your thoughts, and you're either limited or you're improved by what you're thinking about. And there's actually scientific proof of it. But it can be really difficult. We know that. I mean, we talked about that earlier, overcoming negative challenges. It's not really an easy thing to do, and resilience doesn't come overnight, nor is it something that you're born with. It comes with time and practice. And self-doubt and negative thoughts can just be so overpowering sometimes. So I wanted to share with you 4 tips that are on the screen about how to maybe change that negative lens and that negative mindset into a positive one so that you're capable of doing so much more than with the negative one. So the first one is fake it until you make it. When we don't feel the best version of ourselves, it's okay to play pretend. It's okay to imagine that we are the sum of the best parts of ourselves and we are the person that we always wanted to be. I know that when I was younger, I really struggled with public speaking. So I used to go up on the stage whenever we had these competitions in elementary school, and I'd pretend I was either Barack Obama or some famous motivational speaker, and that everyone just wanted to hear what I had to say. And eventually it worked. Slowly and steadily, I became the motivational speaker that I always wanted to be. And it's something as simple as maybe you don't feel your best. You don't feel like you look your best. Sometimes just putting on an outfit, our favorite one, makes us feel way better. If we're feeling unhealthy and feeling like our gut's sticking out a little too much, sometimes making your favorite meal with a lot of veggies can be the quick fix that we need. And it starts us to think that, maybe we are healthier than we thought and we can do it. Fake it till you make it helps you turn your negative lens into a positive one. The second one is something that overlaps what we talked about earlier, embracing feedback. We talked about having a good team, and a good team is a reflection of who you are. The people around you can confirm or reject what you think about yourself because they're the ones that can see reality. You view yourself through so much criticism and just so much negativity. That's just the way humans are, unfortunately. But having a good team around you can bring you back to reality. They can remind you that you are pretty, you are smart, you are successful, you're capable of anything. And that's what will help you get back to a positive mindset when you're not feeling your best. The third one is my favorite tip. Go where you feel the best version of yourself. And this relates to what Hannah was saying with the energizers. So for some of us, the place that we're in and the time that we're in that place can remind us of the person that we truly are on the inside. So for example, it could be the library. It could be out on a walk. It could be going to a friend's house, having a dinner with someone, or going to a support group or a class that you absolutely love. In that place, you feel unstoppable and you feel like you can do anything. And pay attention to that. Pay attention to that feeling and where you're feeling it and who you're feeling it with. I know that for myself, our mindfulness, motivation, and movement group is where I feel the best version of myself. I feel like a learner. I feel like a changer. I feel like a sharer, and I feel good. I feel happy. I'm in the company of wonderful people. So that's a place that I always think back to when I think I'm not feeling that great. I don't really think that I'm a positive person, all these kinds of things, all those negative thoughts. That's a place that I remember. And the last one is the simplest one. And I want you all to do it today. Looking into the mirror and smiling. And I know it kind of seems silly. I mean, you just walk past the mirror and you're like, oh, don't look the best today. But I want you to give yourself a smile. Smiling releases all these happy chemicals in our brains. And smiling creates that association. You see yourself and you're happy because that's the way it should be. We should make ourselves happy. So it's the simplest one, but it's the one that I encourage you to do the most. Wake up in the morning, go to the bathroom, look at your yellow teeth and your nasty breath and give yourself a big smile because you're the key to your own happiness.
You know,
Next
go back
yes.
one more. Go back one more. The one I like is 3. Go where you feel like the best version of yourself. And you mentioned the mindfulness meditation exercise moment group. That's a very special hour you guys putting together, and I wish more people would take advantage of it. It's a place that I feel very safe. I always feel good, even though I dart in, dart out. It's a wonderful place, and so I encourage people to find those places and to make the time to go there. I see a lot of people faking it, but they never quite make it. So and so it really is that surround yourself in the most successful environment possible. I think that's and by trying different things, you don't know what that will be. And find a bunch of young people. They make you younger too. I speak from experience. You guys have taken 10 years of you've given me an extra 10, 20 years of life. Thank you. I hope we can do the rest with the rest of the world.
I think it depends on how young. When I babysit my little cousins, I feel pretty old. Everything's creaking. I can't squat down to their level, but I appreciate that. Yes, so we just want to leave you off with the thoughts that sometimes we see the world more negatively than it actually is. And that's where we stop ourselves and we think, hey, this isn't as bad as I thought it was. It just takes a little perspective. And visualizing the best for yourself is the first step in becoming happy and healthy. And it just leads to the fact that your thoughts are more powerful than you think. So use them wisely and don't take them for granted.
So I think with that, I just wanted to jump in and say that if you really do enjoy some of these webinars and if you'd like to see some more that are a lot more interactive, we do have a newsletter in the description of the video where you can sign up just to get your weekly emails, weekly updates on everything that we're doing so that you can sort of stay involved in all of the things that we are trying to do. And we hope to see you in future webinars as well. If you are interested in joining the Triple M Club, we'd love to see you there, and we'll tell you how to do that once we go to the last slide where we give you an email address where you can always reach us. There we are. Yeah, so there it is, drcurnew232@gmail.com. So that's one of the best ways to reach us if you have any questions, if you wanted to share any feedback on what you enjoyed, what you enjoyed about today's webinar, maybe what you didn't enjoy so much. If you'd like to sign up for any of our focus groups, such as our Triple M Club, led by Dia, Jerry, and Hannah here, we would love to have you. We always do. You don't have to be a patient of Dr. Curnew's. You just got to be able to bring your smiling face, be ready to sort of participate and hopefully have a good time with us. So if you would like to join, you're welcome to sign up at drcurnew232@gmail.com. And I'll stop rambling now and I'll pass it back to Dr. Curnew. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so take some time for happiness. I think of on Sundays when we have our cooking session, and it's sort of fun. I remember is that I love talking to Dr. Ganguly and others, and Didi. You know, one of the things that people are always asking you how to, you know, what iron pills we should take. And thank you for sharing last week the foods that are rich in iron, and to take it with foods that are rich in vitamin C. You know, the antioxidant effects. I enjoy going to Costco with Chad and spending too much money and asking him for extra money because I spent too much again. I enjoy the family outings, and I enjoy the clinic and all the patients that would make a difference. Mira and has done such a wonderful job in the weight loss crew and things of nature as well. The process is long, but it's also very enjoyable, and most of the time. I hope people go back and think and reflect about this, because you gave me lots to reflect. And when I hear is that I don't have the time for these things, I feel sorry for you, because make the time to be healthier, and make the time to learn and explore new things. Don't be afraid to not be successful the first time around, but just keep going forwards and enjoying the journey, and put yourself in the best possible situation, and enjoy. And I just want to thank the whole group there. You know, Heather is talking to us from another continent tonight. Wow, at a different time zone. So comments from so my take-home message to everybody is learn to fail well, and to enjoy the process, and not be hard on yourself, and to try different things. I may be a lousy artist, but I enjoyed my two colors. I had a pencil and a orange marker today, and that was kind of fun. I'll just go through the. Why don't we just everybody give a final comment from everybody? And anybody out there, any questions out there, or comments from anybody out there, Stuart?
Not at the moment, but I would love to sort of give my final word. You know, my mom's a big Dolly Parton fan, and I think Dolly Parton has a quote where something like, you know, if you want the rainbow, you got to put up with the rain sometimes. So I think that's a beautiful way of sort of signifying everything that we discussed today. I get down all the time. I think we wrote down on our sheet of paper the word fear. I think in many ways, fear, I experience it, but the one word that I think gets me most is worry. I worry about a lot of things that sometimes are out of my control, or I overthink things to the point of driving my own self crazy. And that it was a good activity for me, because I found myself drawing the things that I find enjoyment or relaxation out of. So I drew some sports, some soccer balls, hockey sticks, camping out in the forest, the sun, hanging out with friends, all these things that I think I enjoy a lot. And sometimes I find, even when I'm hanging out with friends, or even when I'm trying to enjoy these things, I find myself feeling guilty for taking the time for myself, and that's a horrible way of thinking. And I think that that's just something that many of us, you know, in this day and age, are maybe conditioned to sort of feel. You know, it's important to always be hyper productive and always working, go, and not taking the time for ourselves. But today's webinar was all about spending an hour and a half taking that time for ourselves. So I hope you were able to sort of reflect on the things that you enjoy, reflect on some of the things that you struggle with, and at the end of the day, just remember to be kind to yourself. I really like that quote by Dolly Parton. It's something that my mother has told me for 22 years now, and it's something that's always stuck with me. And I think I'll pass it along then. How about I pass it along to Hannah? What's your takeaway, Hannah?
Sure. I think my takeaways with all the activities we did today, there's always more than one way to look at any situation and any experience, and any journey. There's always going to be bad parts and good parts. And I think it comes down to what you want to focus on and what you're willing to work on, and just thinking about how you can reflect and do better while still being kind to yourself and taking breaks. Like Stuart said, I think it's important to strive to achieve your goals, but it's also important to let yourself recharge, get your life bar back up to the full level. but yeah, I really enjoyed tonight's webinar, and I hope all of you kind of take away this idea of self-reflecting and kind of enjoying the journey while also being kind to yourself as well. And I'll pass it off to Heather.
Well, I wanted to continue that feeling and respond to you, Stuart, because you were saying that sometimes you feel guilty doing those things that you enjoy. And you have to think about your life bar. If your life bar is low, what are you going to achieve that day? You're not going to be able to do all the things that you wanted to do that are going to fulfill you. So you have to take that moment to invest in yourself and let that life bar replenish so that you can achieve those things. And that's an important part of living a full life. It's not just about our successes. It's being grateful for just being and just breathing, like I mentioned earlier. And I do think gratitude is the attitude. It is the rate limiting step to happiness. You're only as happy as you are grateful. And I think that is the ultimate happiness. Anyone else want to speak? Dia, any final thoughts?
I have none. You all had such beautiful thoughts. I think this is just a good example of an energizer and re-energizing my life bar. So I came into the webinar so exhausted and tired from a long Friday. And now I feel refreshed. I feel mindful. I'm going to light a candle. I'm going to clean up my room. It's going to be a good night. So thank you all. What about you, Aditi?
I agree. Like, I think everyone already captured the key moments from this webinar. I think this webinar kind of shows us that it's okay to have like those fears, those concerns, those thoughts of like, oh, I don't have time. But it's also okay to take time for yourself to make sure that you address those concerns. And like Dia said, this webinar was kind of an energizer. I've admittedly not had the best week. And then reflecting throughout this webinar actually showed me that the things that I think are making my week bad are things that I can't control and things that in some cases I can do to address. So it's kind of highlighted that instead of being so down on everything, I kind of got to focus and reflect a little bit more. And yeah, I think it's going to be a good Friday night as well. I'm feeling very energized and ready to go hang out with some of my housemates and celebrate one of their birthdays. So looking forward to that.
Happy birthday.
I will pass it along to my housemate.
Well, I want to thank everybody for all their participation. I hope people get the chance to reflect and to just think about things. And you gave me a lot to think about. And like everybody, I feel more refreshed, and I always feel good. And thank you for that, everyone. I think we'll, unless anybody has to say anything, I just want to say thank everybody for this. Make better versions of yourselves, and don't be so hard on yourself, but just move forwards. If you're happy with the status quo, terrific. I think most of us want to get improve in our work in progress. So hope to be a work in progress for many more years to come. Thank you all for a lovely evening. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.